The book of Daniel stands as a powerful testament to what it means to remain faithful in a hostile world. Set during the Babylonian exile, this book blends narrative history with prophetic vision, showing how God's sovereignty remains intact even when his people are far from their homeland. From fiery furnaces to lions' dens, from dreams of beasts to visions of kingdoms, Daniel's life and writings provide one of the clearest pictures of God's control over history and his faithfulness to those who stand firm in faith. The story begins in Daniel 1, where young Daniel and his friends Hannah and Azuri are taken from Jerusalem to Babylon. These young men were likely teenagers, chosen for their intelligence and appearance, and placed in the king's service. Babylon tried to change their names, their language, their diet, and their identity. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the king's food. This teaches us a critical early lesson. True faith begins with small decisions. Daniel's stand in a dining hall laid the groundwork for his later stand in a den of lions. God honored Daniel's obedience. Daniel 1:17 says, "To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning." By the end of the chapter, the king found them 10 times better than all his magicians and enchanters. In a foreign land, God was equipping his faithful servants to influence empires. In Daniel 2, we see Daniel's gift of dream interpretation come to life. King Nebuchadnezzar has a troubling dream of a great statue made of different materials: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. No one can interpret it except Daniel. By prayer and revelation, Daniel tells the king that the statue represents a succession of kingdoms, beginning with Babylon. The final kingdom, a rock not made by human hands, smashes them all. This is a prophecy of God's eternal kingdom, which will outlast every earthly empire. This story teaches us 2 things. First, God reveals mysteries to the faithful, and second, he is the true king above all kings. Daniel's visions set the tone for the entire book. Kingdoms rise and fall, but God's kingdom stands forever. Then in Daniel 3, we witness one of the most powerful acts of courage in the Bible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are commanded to worship a golden statue or be thrown into a blazing furnace. They refuse. Their words in Daniel 3:17-18 are legendary. "The God we serve is able to deliver us, but even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods." This is faith without conditions, and God honors it. He doesn't just rescue them, he shows up in the fire. Nebuchadnezzar sees a 4th man walking with them, one who looks like a son of the gods. This moment reminds us that God does not always remove the fire, but he walks with us through it. Daniel's personal test comes in chapter 6. Under a new emperor, Darius the king is tricked into signing a decree that anyone who prays to any god or man besides the king will be thrown into the lion's den. Daniel hears the decree and still prays. 3 times a day, windows open, he kneels toward Jerusalem. His consistency and courage lead him to the lion's den, but God shuts the mouths of the lions. This teaches us that obedience is worth the cost and God's protection is real. From chapters 7 onward, Daniel's book shifts from narrative to apocalyptic vision. In Daniel 7, he dreams of 4 beasts symbolizing the same kingdoms as the statue in chapter 2. But from heaven's perspective, earthly kingdoms are beastly, violent, and chaotic. But then comes one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He is given dominion, glory, and a kingdom that will never pass away. This is one of the clearest messianic prophecies in the Old Testament, and it is the title Jesus would later use most often to describe himself, Son of Man. Daniel 8 and 9 provide more visions and specific prophecies. In chapter 9, Daniel prays one of the most beautiful prayers of repentance in the Bible. He confesses the sins of the nation, not making excuses, but acknowledging their guilt. "We have sinned and done wrong. We have not listened to your servants, the prophets." In response, the angel Gabriel appears and gives him the prophecy of the 70 weeks, a complex timeline pointing to the coming of the Anointed One, the Messiah. Daniel 10-12 closes with a vision of a great cosmic battle. Daniel sees angelic beings warring against demonic forces influencing human kings. This pulls back the curtain on the spiritual realm. In Daniel 10:12-13, the angel tells Daniel that from the moment he began to pray, he was heard, but the prince of Persia resisted for 21 days. Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help. This shows that prayer affects heavenly realms and that there is spiritual warfare behind world events. Key teachings from the book of Daniel. Faithfulness in small things builds strength for bigger trials. God reveals mysteries and controls the future. True worship requires courage. It may cost comfort or life. God walks with us through trials, not always removing them, but always present. Consistent prayer builds unshakable trust. The Son of Man will reign over an everlasting kingdom. Repentance unlocks divine insight. Spiritual warfare is real, and prayer has power in unseen realms. God's kingdom will prevail over all earthly kingdoms. Why the book of Daniel still matters today. Daniel's world looked like ours. Corrupt governments, pressure to conform, shifting values, and uncertainty about the future. And yet, he stood unshaken. His life teaches us that you can be faithful in exile, that God uses the faithful to speak truth to power, and that God is sovereign over time, history, and eternity. In a world obsessed with political power, Daniel reminds us, God's kingdom is the one that lasts.